at item 2 of the pessimist, diabolical, and the demoniac theory. But because it's been such a long time ago again, I think you should read at least what is this all about. But to tell the truth, I had a hard time remembering, so I could not just start from where we stopped.
Yeah.
So let's read, comment, and again, we have no rush to finish this book. If it takes 20 years by we you understand the book, it's better than take a year and nobody understand anything that you read, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, very good, Elmo. Just drop it. See, all right. I'm not having a good morning, looks like. I need to play a little harder, I guess.
No, you don't, Elmo. You're doing fine.
Only if you know.
Okay.
Item 46.
Okay. Okay. 46. The pessimistic, diabolical, or dramatic theory. Here we shall enter upon another order of ideas. Having proven the intervention of an outside intelligence, it was then necessary to try to understand its nature. The easiest means would undoubtedly have been to simply ask it, but certain individuals did not see this as a sufficient guarantee. Instead, they preferred to see all the manifestations as the work of the devil. According to them, only the devil or demons could communicate with such a matter. Although this theory is a little accepted nowadays, it enjoyed some credit for a while in virtue of the special character of those who sought to make it prevail. We would point out, ironically, that the adherents of the demonic theory should not be regarded as being among spiritist adversaries, but rather just the opposite. Whether they are demons or angels, the beings who communicate are always incorporeal. Thus, admitting the manifestation of demons is the same as admitting the possibility of communicating with the invisible world, or at least with a segment of that world. As unreasonable as it may be, believing that such communications are the exclusive product of demons would not appear to be impossible as long as spirits were considered as beings who were created outside the scope of humankind. However, since we know that spirits are only the souls of those who have already lived, this theory has lost all its privilege and prestige, and one might add, all likelihood of being true, for it would mean that all such souls are demons, whether they are souls of fathers, children, or friends, and that we ourselves will become demons when we die. Consequently, to many people, it is not a very flattering and consoling doctrine. It would be very difficult to convince a mother that a dear child whom she has lost and who, after death, came to provide her with proof of its affection and identity, was actually a fiat instead. It is true that among spirits, there are those who are quite evil and who deserve no more than to be called demons. And for a very simple reason, there are humans who are quite evil, and death brings them no immediate improvement. The issue is to know whether it is only they who can communicate with us. To those who believe so, we would propose the following questions. Number 1, are there both good and evil spirits? 2, is God more powerful than evil spirits or demons, if you prefer? 3, affirming that only evil spirits communicate is the same as saying that good spirits cannot. If such is the case, then it either happens by God's will or against it. If it is against God's will, then evil spirits are more powerful than God. If it is by God's will, then why, in all the divine goodness, wouldn't God allow good spirits to communicate in order to offset the influence of the others? Number 4, okay.
So that's where we stopped last
Yeah.
month. We stopped on 2, but that's all right. And just to recap also, it's been a long time now. What is theories? Chapter deals with theories. And again, let's go back to 1860s. The very first book being already out, there was the Spirit's book. We went through a long discussion in the introduction of the Spirit's book, right? And this is the second book of the codification. So it was a very baby doctrine, just starting. And as Kardec says, for everything that is new, any science, any new idea, it will find friends and foes. He refers to those who will accept and those who will reject, and the great majority who would not care at all. Unfortunately, right? It's easier to deal with those who reject because at least they have an opinion. At least they have a reason to disagree or agree. Then it can be redirect. For those who don't care is the hardest one because they just don't care. You can talk to people who just don't care, right? And with spiritualism was not different. 1,000 theories was developed to reject or to accept this new doctrine. And Kardec takes the time with humbleness, with a true interest to teach. He was a natural teacher. It takes time to listen to all those theories, to analyze all those theories. And the very first part of this chapter, it deals with the theories that denies that the communication. There is no such a thing. It's all hocus pocus. It's all creation of our imagination. It's all charlatanism. And the second part, it says, okay, now let's talk about those who accept the communication, but do not accept the communication as it is accepted by us. Just a little mute here, sorry. And one of them, we had seen some already, cannot go back to all of them. One of them that does accept this interaction between the two realms of our existence is the pessimistic, diabolic, or demoniac theory. Because that says everything. Those are not really enemies of spiritism. Actually, those give us some kind of support by saying that there is such a communication, that there is such an interaction between the two realms of our existence. The problem that this theory is kind of reserved for my personal opinion of fanatics that based on their own atavisms, based on their own experience of rooted religions, they would only accept the possibility of this interaction if it comes from the diabolical or demons in the spiritual world to communicate with us. And the argument of Kardec is one, good, you guys agree that there is such a possibility. That's a step up already. It's better than the other theories that they reject the possibility of this interaction. Now, let's verify if it's really done by demoniacal spirits only. We can state, right? Kardec says, however, since we know that spirits are only the souls of those who have already lived, this theory has lost all its privilege. How? How can Kardec say that? Since we know, Kardec not says that Kardec theorizes that those communications are from spirits like us without a physical body. The how is the most important thing, because the scientific aspect of the theory is by putting it to a test, is to doing research, is to spend hours and hours and hours, the same way that a scientist of physical sciences in a lab, in a chemistry lab, in a physicist lab, on the field of doing anthropology, collecting pieces and pieces of little structures of hundreds of zika, being able to put it together to build, not to build, but to put to a test and to prove or disprove a theory. Kardec did the same thing with the study of spiritualism that becomes spiritism, saying that having enough evidence, again, science, to say that now we know that spirits are only the souls of those who have already lived. And based on this theory, on this certainty now, based on the certainty that the spirits are only the souls who have already lived, to believe in this theory, the pessimistic, diabolical, demonic theory, the bad ones are able to communicate, is one to give too much power in the hands of evil. And is to accept that when my grandma died, my daddy died, my mom died, if they're able to communicate, then they had become evil, or they were always evil, which is not very flattering. And that doesn't sound too good to me, to accept the idea that my mom and my dad, they were always evil, or that now they went to the spiritual, they become evil. That a mother who lost a young child, and this young child come back to comfort her, to tell me everything's okay, I'm living and I'm well, that the young child is now an evil thing, a diabolical thing. Not very comforting, does not carry much consolation, this theory. And Kardec proposes all those questions regarding how would that be possible? And the very first question is good, is of course, are there good and evil spirits? It's 50-50, right?
Mhm.
The answer is yes or no. No. Look at ourselves, and now we have to come back to this, because if we didn't do the test, or if did not believe on those who did the test, to come out of the conclusion, since we know that spirits are only the souls of those who have already lived, then you can go back and say, are there good and evil spirits? You'll say, those who have already lived, and now back to the spiritual world, are among those that we would consider good and those that would consider evil. Would I consider my mom, my dad, and my grandma evil? Would I consider them good? Did I have any individuals that I know what are alive that I would consider to be on the evil side of things, wrongdoers, promoters of terror, promoters of wars, promoters of destructions? Would I put them on the side of the evil, the side of the good? And since they are just what they are when they went back to the spiritual world, we conclude that there are good and evil spirits. And again, the word evil over here, we can read as morally unevolved. Okay, those who still take pleasure in wrongdoing. And that is an easy conclusion to reach. If one wants to analyze things with good sense, right? If there are good and bad incarnate, chances are they're good and bad discarnate. It is unimaginable that it would change completely, become absolutely evil or absolutely good just because we don't carry more a physical body. And there is this theory will be further discussed later with more details. Is God more powerful than evil spirits or demons, if you prefer? We need to go back all of them, but especially number item 2 and item 3. Affirming that only evil spirits communicate is the same as saying that good spirits cannot. If so, again, it's 50-50, right? When you use the word only, you are excluding everything else. So affirm that only evil spirits can communicate, then you exclude all others to communicate. So it's the same as saying that good spirits cannot. If such is the case, then it either happens by God wills, or against God will. Okay, only good spirits only bad, evil spirits can communicate. There's there's only way that it can happen. God allows it, or God does not allow it. If God does not allow it, then that means that the evil spirits are more powerful than God. Okay, they can bypass the will of God. They can just disrespect the will of God and do whatever they want, regardless of what God thinks. Therefore, evil is more powerful than God. God has no power against those evil ones, right? If it is by God's will, then God is not what we believe today. As we just completed a part of the Spirit's book on Thursday that deals with God, and we went to all the attributes. No, not all, I'm sorry, a few attributes that a thing that we call that entity that we call God must have in order to be God. If that entity did not have those attributes, or had any attribute that is contrary to those, then a God could not be God. And we know being infinite, being eternal, being omnipotent, omnipresent, being all powerful, and being absolutely just and good. Now, if God, in either way, if God had less power than the evil, then God is not all powerful, and God would not be God. According to the old philosophical discussion that there is in the Spirit's book, and much further expanded in the book Genesis, chapter 2, that deals with God, right? And if God does allow only good spirits, then God is not good and just. What is the goodness when you allow only bad things to come to us? Where is the justice that limits, that prohibits the good one to communicate and allow only the bad ones to communicate? What is the justice towards those who are denied to communicate, and what is the just for us who receive the communication only from evil? I reject that God. I become an atheist right now if that would be true, right? So these two theories, these 2 points puts the theory at a fallacy because it denies the necessary attributes of an entity to be God. Because this denies God being all powerful, and this denies God being all justice and goodness. Questions, comment? No? Okay, number 4.
Okay. Number 4. What proof can you give of the impossibility of good spirits to communicate? Number 5. When we confront you with the wisdom displayed by some of the communications, you respond that the devil uses every sort of mask in order to better seduce us. We recognize the fact that there are hypocritical spirits who coat their language with the varnish of wisdom, but would you hold that ignorance can mimic true wisdom and that an evil nature can imitate virtue without revealing the fraud? Number 6. If only the devil can communicate, and since he is the enemy of both God and humans, then why do spirits recommend praying to God, submitting to the divine will, enduring the tribulations of life without complaining, not pursuing honor or wealth, and practicing charity and all the maxims of Christ? In a word, doing everything that is necessary to destroy the devil's empire. If it is the devil who offers all these counsels, we must agree that no matter how cunning he may be, he would have to be quite incompetent to supply ammunition against himself. Number 7, if spirits communicate, it is because God allows it. Since both good and evil communications are received, isn't it a more logical to think that God allows the evil ones to test us and the others to offer us wise counsel? Number 8, what would you think of a father who left his children at the mercy of pernicious examples and counsels, who withdrew from them, who prohibited them from seeking out individuals who could turn them from evil? Should we believe that God, who is goodness per excellence, would do what a good father or any other person would not? Number 9, the church affirms the authenticity of certain manifestations of the Virgin and other saints in the form of apparitions, visions, or oral communications, etc. Doesn't this belief contradict the doctrine that only demons communicate?
Okay, so all these other tests or questions that Kardec puts for those who believe in this theory or used to believe in that theory that I hope no one does anymore, you can summarize in one thing. We had received many communications. People receive spirit communications every single damn day. And some are deplorable, some are just average, some are empty of everything, some are hypocritical, but some are messages of hope, messages of faith, a message of faith in God, a message of faith in Jesus, some are messages that instigate, that suggest us to understand and to follow the teachings of Christ. And if all this is the work of the devil, then the devil is damn good or damn stupid. That gives all this, Kardec used the word ammunition, against himself. If the devil, the evil, is supposed to lead us away from the idea of, or away from the teachings of Jesus, this devil is doing a great work for Jesus and hurt him or herself. If a devil, I don't know if it's man or woman. we put this theory completely at a fallacy again, right? And then on 7, it gives the idea of free will from 7, 8, and 9. And now Kardec is pretty much telling us this theory is a fallacy. This theory does not hold water. It's totally wrong. And I'll tell you why here. One of the things is free will. Well, two things here. One, the spirit's us without the physical body. So amongst us, there are some of us who will come in with good messages. Some of us would come in with not so good messages, and most of us come in with completely empty messages because we are empty beings. If we progress towards moral values, chances are that we're going to provide good messages. If you stay at the mud of ignorance, once you go back to the spiritual world, you're not going to change. You're going to still be full of mud, and you're not going to be able to bring good messages. And if you didn't put any effort in either way, likely going to be like empty individuals who don't care either way, which unfortunately is the great majority out there. But there is something called free will. And it is that free will that prevails in those who communicate. They have the opportunity, we, outside of the physical realm, have the opportunity to interact with encountered ones via mediumship, and we will provide what we have in us. We have the free will to bring messages. We have the free will to try to influence people one way or another. If my heart is full of evil, chances are I try to influence people towards evil. If it's full of goodness, chances are that I try to influence people towards goodness. Not evil, not saints, just us. And the free will is not limited to those on the other side. It's more important to us here right now. Who would we prefer to be associated with? Which messages are we more interested in receiving? Which messages are we going to receive? Because the spirits want to say something, we cannot shut their mouth, but we can shut our ears and we can choose what to follow and what not to follow, right? And Kardec brings the idea that the church allows and verifies the manifestations of those considered the virgin, of those considered to be saints, in the apparitions, in the communications, in the visions, and everything else. Now, if the communication is only from evil, isn't that a contradiction that now saints and the virgins are able to do so? They do not belong to the spectrum of souls, of discarnated souls or spirits. So was the wrong word used here now? Are they somewhat different from us? So we studied on Thursday that there is three things, right? God, creator of everything else. We have the cosmic fluid, create everything that's matter, the i.e. energy, and the intelligent principle, or all the intelligence derived from. Everything that exists is in it, right? So those considered virgins, those considered saints, does not fit in none of those three things. They are not God, they are not matter, and they are not part of the intelligent principle. Otherwise, they would be spirits like us. And since they communicate, they would have to be evil spirits. So where do they fit? Right? They would have to create a fourth thing. And there actually was created this fourth thing, which in our philosophical vision makes God a non-God, because now he provides preferential treatments of his creation, which makes that this God not being justice, not being just. Why? No, Peter has the title of saint, and I cannot have it. If you derive from the same intelligent principle. Not fair, not just, therefore not God. So it's complete breakdown of this theory. Questions, comment?
I have a comment on number 9. I think it's sort of read my mind in many ways, because as we're reading into the questions before, I had questioning the fact that we do believe the communication of saints and the Virgin Mary, and it's exactly that, right? So if the church accepts that as truthful and follows some of those communications to the letter, you would be sort of really a contradiction to say that that's only evil spirits that communicates, since you're already accepting the communication of what's in essence like spirits, right? The Virgin Mary and the saints, they are elevated spirits, but nonetheless spirits. So I think this number 9 to me was just an answer, or like a confirmation of something I had exactly thought about, because a lot of it I also feel like it's this idea of only communicating with demons or evil spirits. It's the tactic of the church at the time, right? Do not touch anything that's outside the church doctrine, or anything that's trying to touch on what they consider paranormal at the time, right? Because we can't explain, we can't explore that or exploit that. So do not touch, do not try to communicate, because everything outside the church dogma, it's evil, and the sort of, you contradict what the church wanted from people at the time, which is really imposing that tactic of fear on people, just outside the church doors or walls, you're dealing with stuff that's very evil, and then it's going to come back to you.
And that's exactly right. And that is the greatest evil that I see into dogmas. Because it's very easy for an institution to create dogmas, and by definition, it's a statement or law that cannot be reasoned, that cannot be questioned, that must be accepted regardless, right? So they can create dogmas. Only evil spirits communication, dogma. You cannot reason, you cannot argue, we cannot contest. You must accept, otherwise you're gonna burn in hell.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come out with another dogma that the so-called saints and Virgin Mary can communicate. Dogma. Do not question, do not put it to a test, do not contest, accept, or you burn in hell. What does it do to us? It holds us hostage. It limits our ability of think, of explore the most precious thing that you have, the intelligence of reason about things, right? And that's why it loses its power as we progress morally and, of course, intellectually, because especially intellectually, eventually see, wait a minute, why do I have to follow this dogma? Why do I have to fear burning hell so much? 1,000 years wasted in the Middle Age is not enough. I'm done with this. Now I am going to think, and I'm going to look for alternatives to find the questions that I have. Why does Saint can come in and show themselves, and my grandma, my child in the spiritual world cannot do it, and if they do, they are evil? Fear that you're not going to go see that soon here also can only hold us hostage for a while, because intelligence reason will prevail eventually. Problem is when you don't have an alternative. Then you choose to believe in nothing, than to believe something that does not make sense whatsoever, and not have an alternative. We become those complete disbelievers in everything. Two sides are also dangerous to us.
Very true. Thank you.
So
Okay. We'll continue.
let's
Okay. We believe that some persons have professed this theory in good faith, but we also believe that many have done so for the sole purpose of avoiding being concerned with such matters because of the evil communications which everyone is subject to receiving. By stating that only the devil manifests, they wish to scare people as they would a child. Don't touch that, you'll get burned. Perhaps the intention is praiseworthy, but it does not meet its objective, since prohibiting something only serves to arouse one's curiosity, and the fear of the devil only stops a few people. In fact, most of them would actually like to see him, if for no other reason than to see what he looks like, and they would be amazed to find out that he is not as ugly as they had thought he would be. Mightn't there be a further motive behind this theory that communications derive exclusively from the devil himself? There are persons who regard all who do not think as they do to be in error. Isn't it possible that those who hold that spirit communications are the work of demons are afraid that spirits might not agree with them, especially on issues concerning this world rather than those concerning the other? Since they cannot deny the facts, they try to present them in as frightening as matter as possible. This method, however, does not produce any better results than any of the others. And where fear of the ridiculous is powerless, it is best to allow things to run their course. A Muslim who heard a spirit speak against certain laws of the Quran we surely believed it was an evil spirit. The same would apply to a Jew concerning certain practices of the law of Moses. As for Catholics, we heard one of them state that the communicating spirit was the devil because he thought differently concerning the temporal power, even though the spirit only preached charity, tolerance, love for one's neighbor, and abnegation of worldly affairs, all in harmony with the maxims proclaimed by Christ. Since spirits are but human souls and as such not perfect, it stands to reason that they are equally imperfect spirits whose character is reflected in their communications. It is undeniable that they are evil, cunning, and profoundly hypocritical spirits whom we must guard against ourselves against. However, simply because there are perverse individuals in this world, would that be any reason for us to run from societal life? God has given us reason and discernment for judging both spirits and humans. Best way to avoid the possible inconveniences that spiritist practice may present is not to prohibit them, but rather to clarify them. An imaginary fear can only make a momentary impression, and it will not affect everybody. While, on the other hand, a clearly demonstrated reality is indeed comprehensible to all.
Thanks.
Okay.
So I think it's hard to disagree that a theory that is of the diabolical, pessimist, or demoniac is a fear-creating theory, right? It's meant to instigate fear toward communication with spirits. It is great to create that fear toward interaction with the spiritual world, because it's only evil who can come interact with us. Who wants that? The question though is why? Why would you have that intention of create fear towards the communication with the spirits, right? And why would the devil have more power than Jesus, than God, and Jesus by that manner, right? So it's indeed by stating that only the devil manifests, they wish to scare people as they would a child. Don't touch that. You get burned. It reminds me a little bit of the parable of the Mosaic Genesis, when God come and say, you have all those trees, you have all the fruits, everything is good. You can go and mess with any one of them, but don't touch the fruits of that tree. What does it does to us? What does it tell to us? That all those trees, all those fruits in there becomes meaningless. The only one that we care about now is the one that they say don't touch that. Oh my God, it's gonna kill us. If someone says that, in a house full of rooms, 18 rooms in a house, they say you can go into any room in the house, but not that room number 7. All of the rooms become meaningless to your mind. You wanna know what's inside of room number 7, because that's the one that you cannot. That's one that is going to intrigate us. So creating that fear that you cannot communicate would instigate people to the exact opposite. I want to see this. I want to see the face of this evil. I want to see the face of this devil they are talking about. And then they would say that it's not so. They would say that it's not all that bad. On the contrary, there's some wonderful things to receive from the spiritual world. It's not all evil. But to me, the most truthful reason that I personally find is when Kardec puts over here, is it possible that those who hold that spirit's communication are the work of demons, are afraid that spirit might not agree with them, especially on issues concerning this world rather than those concerning the others? To me, this is the key here. If I have the power in my hand, using the dogmas that I create, if I have the power in my hand and I hold on strong to that power, and there are other individuals over there who have good arguments that goes against those dogmas that I created, so I hold on to my power, would I allow those who have those good arguments to express them? Would I invite them to discussion at the table if they can bring arguments against the dogmas that I created that allow me to have control of everything? I think this is the main reason of creation of theories of fear against communication to the spirits. Kardec, in one of his messages on the Spiritist magazine, says that one of the reasons that Spiritism could not have developed itself in America at the time, the late 1700s, when Sister Foxes and all the spiritualistic was happening here. One of the strong things was the idea of the reincarnation and the equality of us as spirit, because that would absolutely reject the idea of slavery. If we are all equal, if the physical body is just an instrument of work of the spirit, then the differences in the skin color loses its value. And when it loses its value, it puts us all equal, and then slavery become a crime against God, basically against the idea of equality created by God that we see in the in the chapter in the Spirit's book of moral laws. Therefore, I don't want to lose the ability, the possibility of having slaves, because that's what built my fortune. Therefore, I'm going to reject this theory. Therefore, I'm going to stay with the theory that is pessimist, and about if anyone in the spiritual would say that we are equal, that slavery is not good, I'm going to say that that comes from evil. That those who come from God would not say such a thing. Because I want to hold the power that I have in my hand now. And some of those communications, some of those things that come from the spiritual world may contradict, may become an opposition towards slavery. And again, use slavery as an example, okay? So because I want to hold on to the power that I have, I will not accept anyone who comes and say anything that contradicts my power, that contradicts my dogmas that I created to have a stronghold of the situation. And like when Kardec puts over here, and again, it's just an example, a hardline Muslim, if we hear anything, it contradicts anything that is in the laws of Quran, would say it comes from the evil spirits, so not accepted. If a Jewish person hears something from the spiritual word that it's not in accordance with the law of Moses, we reject it. It comes from devil. In these days, and he says over here, as for Catholics, we heard one of them that communicating spirit was the devil because he thought differently concerning the temporal power. And we see in the Bible what the temporal powers is the omnipotent power of the Pope, basically, right? Even though the spirit only preached charity, tolerance, love for one's neighbors, and abnegation of worldly affairs, all in harmony with the maxims proclaimed by Christ. So here's the problem with the lack of reasoning. So couldn't this Catholic individual say, I like everything that Spirit said. I said that Spirit communication was really good because it brought the true teachings of Christ. But I disagree with when it comes to the temporal power. I agree to everything that Spirit says over here, all the things about charity, what love you live, this is so great and wonderful. I disagree because I believe that the Pope must have absolute power. To me, that's much more acceptable. That's actually reasonable. But to say that now all the communication, all this talk about charity, about tolerance, about love towards neighbors, loses its value completely because there is one statement that goes against the temporal power, and that is absurd. That is absolutely absurd. I can even accept that say, yeah, everything is good except when it touches the temporal power. The spirit is good, but he is mistaken when it comes to this temporal power thing. To me, that's not acceptable. But the whole thing becomes evil, diabolic, because of one statement that is contrary to his beliefs, and 99% is agreeable. Now is the work of the devil. Then 9% of myself is the devil's work as well, because I believe 99%, I agree with 99% of it. That is the lack of reasoning over here. And that's the problem of fanaticism here. That you waste opportunity of getting all the good that we could get, reject all the good that is in one thing because of one little thing that we do not agree. That is fanaticism, and that's what holds us in the mud of ignorance. And he continues to say it is undeniable that there are evil, cunning, and profoundly hypocritical spirits whom we must guard ourselves against. Yes. For those who drink wine, there is good wine and bad wine. You have to know, and the one way to know is take a little sip of each one of them and see which one is good or not. There are sour grapes and there are sweet grapes. Some of the sour grape look so beautiful when you take a look at it, you put it in your mouth, in your mouth, and it's sour. Some of them doesn't look all great. You put in your mouth, and it's nice and sweet. You choose what you like. Like sour, you go for the sour grapes. But there is both. The same thing with the communication with the spirits. There are the good and not so good. You make a choice. Go back to free will. But to believe that those who are good have their mouth shuttered by God because they are good and all the spirits can communicate becomes an absurdity. And what is the key? There is only one key. With education. Education is the only key, is the only factor that eliminates fear. The only way to get rid of fear is to educate ourselves. The example that I usually use, let's say, poisonous snake. Don't even ask me to get close to one. I fear it. I don't want to deal with it. Out of what? Out of ignorance. It's your ignorance. One must respect. One must understand that that animal, if you do not treat it with the proper respect, maintain the proper distance, if you not know how to approach, how to touch it, it could be extremely dangerous. But when you educate yourself, when you know how to approach, when you know how to touch, when you know how to hold, you can do it. And what is the difference? Education. Learn how to deal with that animal. And fear just prolongs ignorance. Again, Middle Age, 1,000 years of wasted years, basically, because we are basically hostage of theories that instigated fear upon us. And if you dare to go against those dogmas, you'd be burned as an evil thing and retard progress and just hold back progress. So there is no way out. It's to education. It's to educate ourselves. And the one way to educate ourselves is to have the courage of get out of the box and look around and see other things. No, it's the man in Plato's cave who was able to free himself and walk up and find the light. It takes courage, it takes effort. It takes effort to free oneself and have the courage to challenge the present beliefs and everything and go against that current and move up and find the light. That is education. That's what education gives to us. If you go through that process, you got up there, you see the light, and you don't like when I come back, at least you know. I went up there, I saw the light, and I right stay in the shadow. It's unlikely that you have, but at least you have the courage to move on. You have the courage to get out of that shadow. You have the courage to get out of that box and go there. This is education. In general, once you find that light, you don't want to go back to the darkness anymore. And only education provides us that light or that clarity that frees us from those dogmas, especially the ones that instigate fear on us. Again, not saying that you go mess with poisonous snake, but know how to approach, how to deal with it. Mediumship, spirituality, spiritism is the same thing. There are good and evil, not to differentiate. And you can only do that through educate oneself, both special dealing with spiritualism, special dealing with communication with spirits, educate yourself with the moral values. Then you'll be able to separate good and evil. Comments, questions? All right.
Okay. 47. The optimistic theory. Alongside the theories that only see spirit phenomenon as being the work of demons, there are others that see them only as the work of good spirits. Such theories start from the principle that, being released from matter, the soul is now free of any kind of veil and must therefore be possessed of supreme knowledge and wisdom. However, this blind confidence in the absolute superiority of the beings of the invisible world has been a source of numerous deceptions for many people. At their own expense, they have had to learn to distrust certain spirits, just as they have learned to distrust certain individuals.
Okay, I think one of the greatest truth that we can get from Buddha is when he suggests take the way of the middle. Not too far to the right, not too far to the left. Now, the middle is not a point right in between both sides, but the middle is above both sides. Imagine what's the word? Equilateral triangle, a triangle with three equal sides, right? Or a pyramid. That one side of the base is too far right, and the other side is too far left. The way of the middle is the third angle of that triangle, the one that stay above. You move towards that middle, move forwards, you move upwards when you walk too far from the right, away too far to the right towards the middle, and the same way to the other side. And this theory of the optimist theory is exactly the opposite side, is too far to the other side from the one I just read, the pessimist. So the pessimist is just as bad as the optimistic because it leads us to another extreme, and the extremes are no good. Again, always take the way of the middle. The truth is more likely to be in the middle than in either extremes. Problem that we have today in our world seems to be aggravating, that everyone is going to far to one side and neglect everything else that there is on the other side, and vice versa, right? Because now you believe that all communications are good. That everything that comes from the spiritual world is a work of good. It's a belief that you would accept the idea that Kardec puts over here. Such theory starts from the principle that, being released from matter, the soul is now free of any kind of veil and must therefore be possessed of supreme knowledge and wisdom. Like magic, right? You lose this physical body, you lose this physicality, and now we are all good. We are possessed by supreme knowledge and wisdom. Man, if there's anything else that suggests suicide is this. If that is a fact, why should I want to hang out in this world for? I want to go back as soon as I can, so I can be possessed of supreme knowledge and wisdom. One extreme to another. Therefore, everything that comes from the spirits, for the spiritual world, is good because the spirits are possessed with supreme knowledge and wisdom. And not too far to the other side, the opposite of the pessimist theory, equally good, equally bad. I'm sorry, equally bad. Perhaps even more dangerous. Because it's better to reject a truth. I'm sorry, it's better to reject. My God, what was wrong with me? It's better to reject 10 truth than to accept a lie. So in the theory, in the pessimist theory, the spirit brings us 10 truth, but I do not accept because it comes from the spiritual world, and I believe that everything that comes from the spiritual world is evil. I reject all those 10 truth. Not good, bad. On this theory, They bring me one lie and I accept it because I believe in this optimist theory that if come to this from the spiritual world, it's good. And that's a lot more dangerous. That leads me to act in the wrong side. That leads me to believe in evil. Because if it comes from the spiritual world, it has to be good. And the spirit said that it's good, and then I have to do it. If they say that the terror is good, it is a message that indeed we should go and practice terrorism to destroy such and such a things because ABC. And it will you believe because it comes from the spiritual world and you become terrorists. Believing that you're doing the right thing. Believe that you are doing the work of good. Do you see how dangerous this is? Not because I'm evil, I'm actually good. I'm doing work for the good. Because it came from the spiritual world, the spirits told us that to create terror towards A, B, C, or D, it's the right thing to do. That's extremely far more dangerous than rejecting the truth. We see here the truth when Kardec says what he says. So the other danger of this theory is the disillusionment. Oh, I believe that they were telling me the truth. They are telling me the right thing. So I did it. And now I realize that it was not a good thing. Therefore, I don't believe in anything that comes from the spiritual world anymore. Don't even come to me and talk about a message from the spirits because it's a lie, it's a fallacy. Because you went too far to the extreme to believe that everything from them is good. You apply it in your life and it didn't work well. And that leads to a loss of faith. That leads to a loss of waste of opportunities to get something valuable for the spiritual world. Because now you have this disillusionment that if it comes from the spiritual world, you have to be careful because they lie a lot. Because if we start from the point of view, believe that everything that comes from them is good, you put to a test and it fails you, then you are going to go against this, at least for a long time, if not throughout this reincarnation till you learn better. Eventually you'll learn better. Spiritism is exactly in the middle. Spiritism, of course, are biased. When I say that, and that's me saying, is the top of that pyramid. Right in the middle, but not at the same level, but above. The tip of the triangle. Because it uses reason, because it puts all the theories to a test before its application, and only apply when the test leads to something. The test only leads to truth. Then I can apply it. And yes, mediumship is good. Mediumship is valuable, but not all messages are good. Not all messages are valuable. But at some time, some are extremely good and valuable and should be applied in our lives. Free will, intelligence will decide which one should apply or not. This is spiritism. To me, personally, again, I'm biased. That is the apex of that pyramid. Comments? Questions? Okay.
Okay. 48. The United Spirit or Monospirit theory. A variety of the optimistic theory is the belief that there is one soul spirit who communicates with humans, and that this spirit is Christ, the protector of the earth. However, when communications are the lowest triviality of a revolting grossness, full of malice, malviolence, and malice, it would be impious and profane to suppose that they could have emanated from the spirit of goodness par excellence. If those who believe in this theory had received only impeccable communications, we could possibly accept their illusion. but most of them declare that they have received extremely evil communications, trying to explain them away as a test to which the spirit of goodness has submitted them by dictating absurdities to them. Thus, while some attribute all communications to the devil, who is able to make good statements in order to tempt them, others believe that Jesus is the only one who manifests himself, but that he can make evil statements in order to test them. What shall decide between these two very diverse opinions? Common sense and experience. We cite experience because it is impossible for those who adopt such exclusive ideas to have sufficiently verified everything. When we confront them with cases of identification that attest to the presence of relatives, friends, or acquaintances through written, visual, and other means of communications, they respond that it is always the same spirit, the devil, according to some, or Christ, according to others, who assumes all forms. But they give no reason as to why other spirits cannot communicate, or why the spirit of truth would come to fool us under false appearances in order to deceive a poor mother by pretending to be the child whom she is mourning. Reason refuses to admit that the holiest of all spirits would come to put on such dark comedy act. Furthermore, doesn't deny the possibility of any other form of communication take from Spiritism its kindness characteristic, the consoling of the afflicted. We would simply state that such a theory is irrational and could not endure a serious examination.
So this theory of the uni-spirit or the mono-spirit, meaning that there is only one entity that communicates. And this entity might be Christ, or this entity must be the devil. Okay? This theory does not, well, this theory states the only one can, but they will believe that only Christ can communicates, and other will believe that only the devil can communicates. It's also a 50-50 kind of theory, right? It's all or nothing. Right? Everything comes from Christ, everything comes from the devil, and nothing in between. Now, we come from the principle that, not a principle that we know that spirits are only the souls of those who have already lived. You go back and quote the book when I say that, right? But once we leave our physical life, physical body behind, go back in the spiritual world, we have no access to communication with all of the ones. We have no access to try to guide individuals towards good or towards bad. It depends again what we have in our heart. Only Christ can do it, and only the devil can do it. I don't know which one is more dangerous. I think believe that everything comes from Christ is more dangerous. And it's also to diminish the level of the Christs, not only Jesus, but all the Christs, to our level. It's the same thing of most of the religions that put God at our levels, make the Christ with all the humans fallacies, with all the human vices, right? Of being jealous, being angry, getting upset, seeking revenge. It's the God that we created, not the God that created us. And the same thing with this theory. Everything comes from Christ. It's make Christ like us. Because if we receive a message that suggests some degree of jealousy, that suggests anything related to seeking revenge or making justice with your own hands, how can we accept that come from Jesus, from Christ. It is bring Christ to our level. We make him as ignorant as we are, and rejecting his own paradigm, reject his own teachings towards us. One thing, and the same thing on the other side, right? If the message is of hope, is of love, is of consolation, is of following the teachings of Christ, but we believe in this mono spirit theory, and we believe that only the devil can communicate, then the devil is them really good or them really stupid. It doesn't make any sense. One thing, one cannot give what one does not have. And I'll say that on my own, is me saying now, that Jesus has no evil to give. Jesus is a perfected spirit. So it's unacceptable in my mind that any theory, anything that has any touch of jealousy, any touch of anger, any thought of punishment, it doesn't come from Jesus. It just cannot, because Jesus does not have none of those things in himself, and therefore he cannot give what he does not have. It's unacceptable, again, what the idea that a communication from Jesus would have anything that is not of absolute love, patience. Not even Jesus, I mean, and then it's me saying over here, even an Emmanuel with Chico Xavier, who was here with us not long ago, I cannot accept the idea that someone will receive a message that's signed by Chico Xavier, by Emmanuel, that says something that is not absolutely good for us. I just don't believe in this such a possibility. And Gandhi and Mother Teresa and so many others as well. With Jesus, oh my God, even to accept the idea that one of us, a me, that can actually receive a message from Jesus is very hard for me to take already, right? And what shall decide between those two very diverse opinions? Common sense and experience. And that's where spiritualism comes, and spiritualism to me is again the apex of that pyramid. Common sense and experience. Both equally important. Common sense is not very common at all, but experiences is very important. Put it to a test. Instead of saying, no, I'm not going to touch that because that is very dangerous, no, let me touch it and see what it is. I have faith in myself that I can deal with, I can make good decisions. So now put this to a test and be reasonable when you put that to a test. Are those messages really so completely good that I can accept coming from Jesus Christ? Very unlikely. And so completely evil that I can address it only to the devil. Very unlikely as well. So experiment, put things to a test. Put a spirit to some kind of identification that we're going to discuss in this book. Identity of spirits, perhaps one of the most important chapters in this book. Have a know-how, have a methodology to analyze what's come from the spiritual world, analyze the communication, so can you have a good idea of who is giving this message to you, right? If it's good, do we really care who signed at the bottom of it? If it's good, it's good. Well, who signed it? And if it is bad, it's bad. Not going to apply to my life. I don't care who signed it. If its sign comes from Jesus Christ, or comes from Chico Xavier, or comes from Gandhi, but I suggest that I should go and seek revenge towards my neighbor, who will I believe that really comes from Jesus, that really comes from Chico Xavier, that really came from Gandhi? What's wrong with me? Right? So another spiritual experience, common sense, not really common, but so important to us. We have 5 minutes left. I don't think I have time to continue this. Does anybody has any questions, any comment? Okay, I hope it was useful time for everyone. I hope you all got something from it. Carol, can you make a final prayer? If no one has any comment.
Yes, certainly. Thank you very much, Elmo, for guiding us today and inspiring us. Thank you, Sarita, for reading, and everyone who is here participating today. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks for the opportunity to be together again for our studies of the Medium's Book, Chapter 4, regarding theories. Discarnates can communicate with us. God allows a range of good and evil communications, both elevated and negative in vibration. The church, capital C, the church institution created dogmas that could not be tested through reason or questioning. Intelligence will ultimately prevail, and the truth will be manifested. Fear will be powerless. Fear is merely a control mechanism. Human souls and spirits are not perfect. Through our conscious discernment, spirit communication through mediumship can be very beneficial for our development and evolution. Effort and education will eliminate fear and doubt, because fear prolongs ignorance and progress. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, and for our loved ones, our teachers, the directors, the counselors, the mediums, the workers, and all who are participating. We pray for inner peace, and especially now for world peace, and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for SGNY and all spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, expand, and be protected day and night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to family, friends, loved ones, and coworkers. May we remind ourselves now to be beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and of charity. So be it.